Jay Walker, and visiting with, an old friend, an old colleague, and one of the latest members of the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame, former Ragin Cajun and pro football quarterback Jake Delhomme is with us, brought to you by Service Chevrolet Cadillac. I was just thinking, Jake, your freshman season was like my second year doing the Cajuns on the radio. And I've always wondered from your point of view, and I heard it from Coach Stokely years ago, and I heard it from Gerald Broussard recently. Tell me what you went through at halftime of that very first game that you suited out as a freshman.
Well, I remember it vividly, to be quite honest. We were playing Utah State, and the first half, let's just say, didn't go that well. I had a pretty strong idea there was a chance I could play at some point. Coach Cook was very upfront with me early on, Louis Cook, obviously, and I had a really good fall, and then the scrimmages leading up to it, I had been doing well. And I knew the plan was, if we could, we'd redshirt, and whatnot. But he kind of told me, he said, listen, he said, you be prepared to play. He said, you're going to have a baseball cap on and a clipboard. Said, be prepared to take it off pretty quick. And things didn't go well for us in the first half. And I remember, at halftime, sitting in there, the coaches, they hurry up and go meet. And when Louis walked back in, he just gave me that, just looked at me. And it was, in Louis' way with those eyes, he just looked, kind of nodded his head, and he said, take the cap off. Time to go. I said, yes, sir. And that was it, and, we went from there.
It was an interesting second half. You performed well and got the Cajuns back in the game, but the deficit was a little bit too much to overcome. Then you got your first start the next week against Miami of Ohio, and that's a game that I remember really, really well. Had just an incredible first half, and I've never asked you in the second half of that game. You're up 28-3 at halftime, and they came back and won 29-28. What was it in the second half of that game that made it so hard to move the football? Do you remember?
I think the biggest thing is that we jumped on them so quick, and we just got that big lead. I don't know if we coasted. We didn't know how to win. Certainly, I'm soaking wet behind the ears in that game still, and I can't really say they probably were leaning on me, the coaching, wise. We probably tried to run it maybe a little bit more, but rightfully so. But their receiver, I believe his name was like Jeffrey Patterson or something, big kid. We just couldn't tackle him. And we just had some plays that it wasn't meant to be. And I remember that, God bless his soul, Orlando Thomas he never missed an interception, a fumble, anything that was near him. The ball, he had a magnet in his hand. And the ball is a tip in the air, and he goes to intercept it, and this game is over. I mean, it's going to be, 35-21, like 3 minutes, whatever it is. And he dropped it. And you just had that sinking feeling of this might not be our day. And sure enough, it just wasn't our day. And I think gloom and doom set in. 0-2, the season the year before, only 2 wins, and we were playing a Memphis team that was coming into Cajun Field, led by Isaac Bruce, who was obviously a pretty good receiver in his own right. But I think it just kind of gave us a little spark that, hey, we let one slip away, but we got something going here, and it took off from there.
You wound up winning a bunch of games in a row, and that streak got broken over at Florida. And then, at the end of the season, you've got a chance to win a share of the Big West Championship and, got it done against Louisiana Tech. But a week or two before, out in Las Vegas, the way the schedule worked out, you only played 5 conference games. And even though you had a chance to win a share of the championship, Arkansas State had kind of, I don't know. I don't know what to say. They upset Nevada the same day you were out at UNLV.
On a Hail Mary. It was a Hail Mary.
On a Hail Mary. As a matter of fact, it was the first time all season long they'd completed 2 consecutive passes. And so you knew that there was no bowl game, but you also knew there was a chance to play for a championship, and it was against Louisiana Tech. Do you remember the locker room before that game?
I remember everything before that game. I mean, we were, I think, especially the older guys, they hadn't had success. They hadn't tasted it in a couple of years. I think they were all back-to-back 2-win seasons. But still, for us, I mean, we knew we couldn't go to a bowl. I think we were all hopeful, maybe Independence Bowl, because they didn't have nearly the number of bowls they have now. And hey, it's a conference championship. We will get a ring. I mean, that was the whole mantra. And it was Louisiana Tech. I mean, we're not losing to anybody in state. I mean, that was the whole mindset.
It's hard to believe that the last time the Cajuns beat Louisiana Tech, you were their quarterback, and you never lost to them in the 4 years. Beat them twice in Ruston, which wasn't an easy thing to do. You know, when you were a kid at Turling's Catholic, and you were like 6'1", 6'2", still growing. You're about 155 pounds at one time. Somebody would tell you, look, kid, one of these days you're going to play in a Super Bowl. You're going to be the face of a franchise in the National Football League, and one day you're going to be inducted into the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame. What would you have said back then when you were 17?
I would have said, "Don't wake me up from this dream that I'm having." I probably so. I've been blessed. That's all I can say. It's been a great ride, and I had a fantastic support system along the way that enabled me to continue playing and things like that. But you're right. Jay, a 6'1", 165-pound senior quarterback at Turling's. Single A school at the time, 25 guys on our team, including freshmen, and it never entered my mind. And I think that was the greatest thing, is that we played to play, we played to compete, and then we didn't come off the field it was just, we're playing to win, and just, hey, I'm lucky enough, my school's going to be paid for. I'll get to go to college. But that's something that just never ever entered my mind. I guess you can say I lived for the moment, so to speak.
When did you realize that, look, I'm good enough to play in the National Football League? When did that light bulb come on?
As a freshman at UL, latter part of the season, we had some scouts obviously coming in. Orlando was a junior, and obviously he was highly sought after. And I had a Kansas City Chiefs scout just met up with me in the hall. I was running, I think, from one of the meetings. I think I might have gone talk to Gerald, just kind of BS with Gerald or something for a second. And Coach Falkenberry was actually sitting in Gerald's office, and Russ would always be around. And I had one of those scouts. I remember the scouts gravitated toward Gerald. They loved, visiting with him. And I walked in just to say something, to Gerald or Russ, no telling what. And Gerald said, "Look, that's the kid right here." And the scout shook my hand and said, "Oh, you're doing a great job, blah, blah, blah. I look forward to keeping an eye on you the next few years." And I thought that was the coolest thing in the world, And then, but to be honest with you, Jay, it's not like the scouts were beating down my door my senior year at UL. Whatever it was, I'm not quite sure. There wasn't many that was, they were coming through UL at the time. So, I just kind of went with it and just kept playing. And then I was hopeful something would maybe happen at the end of my senior year or something like that. I mean, honestly, a dream of mine would have been to play in the blue-gray game. If you remember, that used to be played on Christmas Day. And I always, in my mind, I always said, man, I hope I'm not here on Christmas this year. That was my dream, to play, in the blue-gray. But it didn't happen,
Well, something better happened. Jake Delhomme is our guest, brought to you by Service Chevrolet Cadillac. I got asked just a day or two ago my greatest memory of you, and actually it was a memory that where it was not when you were taking a snap from center and running around and trying to complete a pass. It was actually after the game was over against Texas A&M, when you looked at the folks in the south end zone and invited them to come join the party down on the field after the game. I don't know that I've ever seen you look that happy.
Well, that's why you play sports, to me, is for the joy of a win. There's nothing like it. And we knew leading up to that game, we had played Florida, opening game, lost 55-27. Sounded bad, but that was the same year Florida won the national championship and absolutely just demolished people. And we knew we had a decent football team. and we had 2 weeks off. We had, a bye week, and A&M was coming in, and this is the truth. Gerald Broussard, we all know Gerald, full of personality. And that week in practice, we had a very good week of practice, and our whole mantra was, we're going to outwork the boys from A&M. We're going to get them tired, and in Gerald's raspy voice, and they're going to get tired. They're going to huff. They're going to puff, and we're going to beat them. And there'll be the fans that are going to be, falling out the stadium. They're going to come down and tear the goalpost down. I mean, that's what was said all week long. And we were living it. We were living it in that moment. It was happening. And I remember, taking the knee or whatever it may be, and just, it was this pure elation. I don't know. I think I looked like no telling what I look like, a baby giraffe running around, calling the fans on the field. But certainly was a great moment.
When you wound up playing, in NFL Europe, and then as a backup quarterback in the NFL, how often did it cross your mind, man, am I ever going to get an opportunity?
A good bit. There's no doubt, a good bit. You just don't know. And, Jay, I think the biggest thing where you questioned, when I was practicing with the Saints my rookie year, the only thing I worked on was, taking a knee. I mean, because that's all I did. You did individual drills, and then pretty much you just watched the rest of practice. Very limited opportunity, and but I felt my talent was on par with the other quarterbacks, and deep down inside, I felt, man, I think I'm better than these guys, But I just think mentally, I had a lot more to learn. Then get sent to NFL Europe, and I'm not starting. I'm backing up, but I'm backing up somebody that I was pretty impressed with, and it was Kurt Warner. So you question yourself. If I can't be a starter in NFL Europe, how can I make it in the NFL? But I just trusted what my eyes were seeing, what I see on film, and I think I was looking at them, clearly and not in selfish, eyes. I just felt I was on par, and I could make it, and lucky enough, I was able to stick around.
Let me ask you this about NFL Europe. Were you guys mic'd during play?
I was mic'd, I think, one time, and it was my second year they sent me over, and we played in the World Bowl, and I was mic'd that day. From what I remember, maybe we were mic'd a little more often, but that's the only ones I kind of really, really remember.
The one thing I remember in the NFL Europe days was you were scrambling with the ball, and you were about to take it in for a touchdown, and some guy just decleated you. And
Mike Maslowski was his name. And
you said, good hit, buddy.
Yeah, I remember that. We were going in. It was the north end zone, and I thought I could have made it in. Then all of a sudden, I just see he was the defensive MVP, and I think the Kansas City Chiefs. He ended up playing a few years, and he was coming. I think, oh my gosh, what do I do? So I started the halfway slide, but he finished the slide off for me. And why I said that, I'll never know. But I got up running back to the huddle, acting like I was okay. But it's just one of those deals, just a reaction.
That was the day I pretty much had decided that you were totally indestructible. Jake Delhomme, our guest here, brought to you by Service Chevrolet Cadillac. You, when you were with Carolina, you had a game where, once again, just like it was in college, you got the call in the middle of the game to go on in. And how was that different from the first time it happened to you as a freshman in college?
Well, I think I knew maybe a little bit more, I guess you can say. A freshman in college, really, you're 18, you're still kind of clueless. That's kind of what was my mindset. This was, fast forward exactly 10 years later, because one was 1993, and then 10 years later is 2003, my first year in Carolina. We get booed off the field at halftime, and Dan Henning comes out, or Mike McCoy, my quarterback coach, comes out, all right, you're going in. And, it was just, all right, here's my time. Let's see if something can happen. The stage was a lot bigger, really felt prepared and ready to go, and, things kind of took off.
And, you wound up performing very, very well, and you wound up endearing yourself to the people in Charlotte. And I know that because every time I go up there and I get in a cab or I get on a shuttle, I'll mention your name, and you're kind of thought of in reverential terms still for the days that you were in Carolina. You were a quarterback in the Super Bowl. You almost won that football game. Did it surprise you that you never got a second chance?
It did, because I think when you're there, you think, and my first year starting, and I'm like, we'll be back. We're young for the most part in some areas. A lot of the guys were, back still under contract, and you just think you're going to get back. And I think most players, they go through that, and you don't realize how hard it is. And then 2 years later, we started making that run at the end of the season again, and we're going to Seattle to play them in the NFC Championship game, and you're that close again, And I think you really start to appreciate it more the longer you play, and it's hard to get back there. It's so difficult. And I'm lucky enough that I do vividly recall the Super Bowl and everything leading up to it. But it's something you strive for. It's just that thirst to get back to the pimp. I mean, this is the mountaintop. This is, you want to get back there. There's nothing like it.
How hard was it when you realized, okay, I've had my time, I've had my career, and now it's over? What was that like emotionally when you first realized, okay, I'm done now?
Jay, it wasn't as bad. Okay, I get released from Carolina. I really played poor in 2009, my last year there. It wasn't good, but still felt like I could play. And I had an opportunity. I narrowed it to Cleveland, New Orleans. Very simple. Back up in New Orleans, obviously, but I had a chance to play in Cleveland. Kind of maybe drank the Kool-Aid, I guess you can say. And Mike Holmgren was the GM, and we're gonna do this, that, and this, and whatnot. Might have drank the Kool-Aid, and the Kool-Aid didn't taste that well. The organization was not ready to win. The structure was not nearly in place, and the playmakers were not there. We tried to help change it a little bit, but get hurt, really stayed hurt the whole season, a walking boot. And again, got to play a couple of games. I only started 4 games that year. We won 2 out of the 4 I started, but I didn't like what I saw on film, Jay. Just little things my mind would tell me to make these plays, and I was off. I was off with my throw. My body didn't turn like I wanted it to turn, and things like that. So I get released that following fall, right when the lockout lifted. Had some teams contact me, and it wasn't right. We hurried up. We moved back home. We got our girls in school here back in Lafayette, and I turned down a team in October, and it was pretty much known that I had turned that team down. It was the Miami Dolphins, and my agent told me, he said, now listen, it's over. You're 36, you're about to be 37. Teams know you turned them down. I said, well, and jokingly I said, well, you never know. I said, Matt Schaub could get hurt in Houston, and they're a good team, make a playoff run and be a part of that. And lo and behold, that happens, and I get to go there by strange reasons, whatever reason. I get to play the last game of the season because they have something wrapped up, the number 3 seed wrapped up. Get to play, and my last pass that I threw in that game, I threw a touchdown pass, and that night I knew I was done playing. We still had the playoffs to play, but I just knew deep down inside that was it. It didn't end right for me in Cleveland. It just wasn't the right place. And for some reason, something told me that, okay, this is it. Now, if I had to play in the playoffs, great. That would have been awesome. I didn't think I was going to, but I knew right then and there that was it. No, that was good enough for me.
And you decided to come back home. You decided to go ahead and keep your family in Louisiana. Given the places that you had been, and given the fact that you'd been in Charlotte for quite a few years, was that an easy decision, or is that something that you and the wife had to talk about and really maybe struggle with a little bit?
No, we never struggled with it. We always knew we would move back. I think what even made it easier is that, getting released from, Charlotte. Had I finished there, let's say I would have played a few more decent seasons there and then been there for 10 solid years, and the kids, would have been really more kind of ingrained in school there. It might have been a whole lot more difficult, but we were coming back home. This is home for us, where our family's at. This is a dear place. We love it. Now, don't get me wrong. I think we could have lived in Charlotte. We don't get to go back like we would like. We love it. It's near and dear to our heart. But this is home, and there's a special place about being in this area.
Tell me what it was like when you got the call letting you know that you'd been selected for induction into the Louisiana Sports Hall of Fame.
Well, Mr. Bruce Brown, somebody, I've always, had a great relationship with and been known for years. He's the one that called me. And, I pretty much giggled, Jay. I'll be honest with you. I caught me totally off guard. Didn't even know I don't even know there's a ballot or whatnot. I'm not sure the whole process, but when he told me, it was something that I just smiled, and I laughed to myself, and I just thanked him, and I was appreciative it was him calling me, because I've been around him for all those years, and, you just kind of, I think the biggest thing for me is that not playing anymore, just more thankful. You reflect back. I think I was kind of a little too one-track minded when I played, a little too anal, just concentrate on what's next, and but this you look back and think about all the great coaches and teammates and the stories and the friends and the support system. You're just appreciative for, everything that's been able to happen and all the people along the way.
In the fall of 1993 was your first taste of collegiate football. In the spring of 1993, the Ragin Cajun softball team went to the College World Series for the first time, and you and Yvette are going in together.
Pretty awesome, and I think that's what made me so even proud. That conversation with Bruce, he kind of told me some of the people, and when he mentioned Kevin and Yvette, and it was like, wow, Kevin was he was the folk hero from Carencro that you heard about. Play football, and when I saw him in high school firsthand, and I've never seen a better high school football player than him. And obviously, it translated well in the next two phases of his career. And then Yvette, being on our practice fields, and Lamson Park wasn't built yet, so it was basically just a chain link fence separating our practice fields from the softball fields. And so during our spring running and things of that nature, conditioning, we will always watch the girls softball, and Yvette would always fly with us on our road trips in the fall, and it's just couldn't be more proud to go in with two winners like her, and certainly like Kevin. But she was always just such a class act, handled people the right way, spoke the right way. It was easy to look up to her.
Jake Delhomme's been our guest here on Bird's Eye View, brought to you by Service Chevrolet Cadillac. I know it's going to be a special weekend, Jake, for you, for your family, for your folks who have really been there every step of the way for you. And you've had an opportunity to do a lot of things in your career. I hope you enjoy this more than anything else that's happened to you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I have a feeling I will. It's we do have a sizable group coming. Some people that are obviously near and dear, and the Panthers will be having a contingent there, and I think that's just that's awesome. So I'm looking forward to it, but I'm looking forward to being around some of these other inductees. They're all special, and I love kind of being around. I love trying to be the dumbest person in the room. I think you can learn from somebody. And I have many friends that tell me I've always been the dumbest in the room. But I just like being around successful people. I just like watching and just seeing how they interact with people, what they do, and things like that. And you just kind of, I don't know, I just always try to watch those people. So I'm excited to meet some of these ex-coaches, players, horse trainer, Frankie Brothers, and things like that. Just to be a part of it's very special.
Jake Delhomme's been our guest. More Bird's Eye View in a minute on ESPN 1420 and .com.